Greetings and welcome to this edition of
Positronic.
I'm Barry P. Cook. I'm here to talk to you about Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, which I've just seen at an advanced screening. So let's talk about this film. As it begins, we see that Scott Lang, who of course is the Ant-Man, has become a successful author, and he's been living happily with his girlfriend, Hope Van Dyne. Lang's daughter, Cassie, has become an activist, and that results in her getting arrested a couple of times, actually. And of course, Scott has to bail her out. While he and Hope and Cassie are subsequently visiting Hope's parents, who of course are Hank Pym and Janet Van Dyne, Cassie reveals that she's been working on a device that can make contact with the quantum realm. Realizing that contacting the quantum realm is dangerous, Janet tries to shut the device off, but the signal is received in the quantum realm, and that results in a portal opening and sucking the five of them down there. Scott and Cassie are found by natives of the quantum realm who are rebelling against their ruler, while Hope, Janet, and Hank have to make their way through the sprawling, tundra of the quantum realm to find Scott and Cassie. Hope, Janet, and Hank meet with someone called Lord Kryler, who was played by Bill Murray, and who was a former ally of Janet's, who reveals that things have changed since she left and that he's now working for Kang. The three of them are forced to flee, and they steal the Bill Murray character's ship. Lang and Cassie are told by the rebel leader, whose name is Gentura, that Janet, who had previously been to the quantum realm, as we know, is indirectly responsible for the uprising of Kang, having helped rebuild his multiversal power core after he was exiled, because she didn't know who he was and what he was up to. She did manage to make it super, super huge before she left so that he wouldn't be able to use it. And after she was rescued, Kang ended up taking over the quantum realm. Anyway, at this point, the rebels come under attack by Kang's forces, who are being led by his robotic henchman named MODOK, who's revealed to be Darren Cross, who was like the other hornety Ant-Man guy in the first movie, the villain. He apparently survived what would have been his death at Scott's hands at the end of the original Ant-Man movie. Scott and Cassie are taken to Kang, who demands that Scott help him get his power core back, or else he'll kill Cassie. Scott's taken to the site, and he shrinks down, nearly losing his mind in the process because it's confusing, and he ends up creating a bunch of quantum doubles or possibility doubles. It's really strange. But Hope eventually shows up, and they're able to shrink the power core and acquire it. But Kang reneges on the deal that he made and continues to hold Cassie prisoner. He even captures Janet and destroys the ship that she was on with Hank. Hank ends up being rescued by his aunts, who got pulled into the quantum realm with them and who experienced time dilation to the point that they were essentially there for thousands of years and evolved big time and became hyper intelligent. So he helps Scott and Hope as they make their way to Kang. Cassie, who, as I said, was still imprisoned, ends up getting out and rescuing Gentura, and they start an uprising against Kang and his army. During the fight, Cassie manages to have a conversation with MODOK, Darren Cross, and explain to him that he doesn't have to behave this way, and he decides that she's right and ends up helping them defeat Kang, but it ends up killing him. Janet manages to get the power core working again and opens a portal back to, home where they came from. And everybody goes through except Scott, because he's stopped by Kang. And he nearly ends up, beating him into submission, but Hope returns through the portal, and she and Scott destroy the power core, knocking Kang into it, causing him to get sucked into oblivion. Cassie then manages to reopen the portal on her end, and Scott and Hope are able to go home. As Scott happily resumes his life, he begins to rethink what Kang had told him earlier, which was that he's only one of a bunch of Kangs, and that without him, up in the regular world to fight his other selves, something terrible is going to come. But Scott sort of just shrugs it off and says, who knows what's going to happen. But we then see that elsewhere, a whole bunch of Kang variants have convened, like Council of the Kangs, I guess you could say, to talk about how one of their own was defeated, which they didn't think was possible. They exiled him to the quantum realm because they couldn't deal with him, but somebody else managed to defeat him. So they're kind of on their heels about that. And they get together to talk about what they're going to do to fight back. But then in a post-credit scene, we see Loki and Mobius in the audience of a show being put on by another Kang variant named Victor Timely in the 1920s. And that's, the whole movie. So I liked the movie. I thought it was a lot of fun and it's visually like crazy stunning. I really liked the Cassie character, the more grown up version. She's really cool. Michael Douglas is a badass. Like, he's been in a couple of these movies, but like in this, he's just a badass. And it's crazy because, he's like, I don't know, 80. And his Hank Pym is just crazy cool in this movie. So I really enjoyed that. The guy that plays Kang, I didn't realize this so much from his appearance in Loki, but in this movie, he is just incredible on screen. He's just a fantastic actor, at least in this role. He does a great job. He's mesmerizing in every frame that he's in. I just thought he was fantastic. So I really enjoyed it on all those levels. And it's very funny. There's a lot of humor in it. So it's very funny. There's a lot of crazy creatures, which again goes back to the visually stunning part. I do have a criticism of this film though, and it's that and I could be off base on this. I'm gonna have to go back and check, but like I don't remember the quantum realm being depicted or described previously the way it's depicted in this movie. Like I remember it being described as like a wasteland of just dangerous, unimaginable constructs that would basically eat you alive, for lack of a better phrase, because they're mindless and, subatomic particles and structures and whatnot. And that being down in the quantum realm, you would go crazy because you're by yourself in this world that doesn't make any sense. It doesn't have any sort of correlation to the reality that you know, and you would end up going mad. And that's why you don't want to go down to the quantum realm, because you just go mad because it's crazy space that makes no sense whatsoever, and it's a wasteland of just weirdness. And you definitely see weirdness you know in this version of the quantum realm, but it's completely different. It's populated by beings that look like humans. And how do they exist? How is that possible? You're in the subatomic world, and they wear clothing, and they have a society, and restaurants, and bars, and ships, and like what? I don't. I mean, if a place like that exists in the Marvel universe or whatever, cool. Okay, they made up a thing where people live in a subquantum. I mean, it doesn't make scientific sense, but okay, it's a comic book. I'll go with it, and that's cool. But they had already said that the quantum realm was a certain way, and now they're saying that it's just like Earth, only weirder. So I was kind of annoyed by that, and like I say, if they said that it was that way from the beginning, I'd be like, okay, it's a comic book. But at the same time, like I said a moment previously, how do you have beings that exist that look like humans and think like humans and wear clothing like humans and have societal structure like humans when they're subatomic? Like subatomic means below the atomic level, means smaller than atoms, right? So how do you have beings that walk and talk and have hair and wear clothes? Like what? So it doesn't make sense with what came before, unless I'm totally misremembering how the quantum realm was represented before. So I don't know. If you take it as a standalone movie, it's really, really cool. You just have to put aside that whole idea of, well, how is this possible? But in this, you have to not only put aside how is possible, but you have to put aside how they described the quantum realm before. So you kind of have to think of it as a standalone movie to narrow down those two complaints to one. And then you kind of just have to go, well, I'll suspend my disbelief on that one. But yeah, it's kind of like a retcon, it seems to me, of what the quantum realm is. And I find that way less scary than I previously found the concept of the quantum realm. Like I was thinking, well, if they got stuck down here and couldn't go home, so what? They're just they're just living in a different society of, human-like beings and humanoid beings, as well as a little, some crazy creatures or whatever. But so what? You could make a life down there. Didn't make a life down there. But that's not how the quantum realm was described before. So it threw me for a loop. I didn't understand that. But now I'm sort of rambling. If you take it as a standalone movie, it's cool. If you start connecting it to what was said before about the quantum realm, you're going to be like, wait a minute. So yeah, but that's really all I have to say about it. It's an enjoyable movie. I'd give it 4 stars. It's visually impressive. It's very funny, and there's a lot of action stuff and cool special effects. So it's an enjoyable film. It's just that it's a bit of a retcon, it seems to me. And Modoc is very disturbing, very, very, very disturbing in this movie. But yeah, and the guy that plays Kang does an excellent job. I'm looking forward to seeing him in, you know, more Marvel stuff. And it says at the end of the movie that Kang will be back. So there you go. But yeah, that's really it. I'm gonna get out of here. Until I return, I wish you peace and long life.